That must definitely sound familiar. Or does it bring back old memories of what used to be a common ringtone in most homes a couple of years ago? I'm sure your answer is a yes. When I mention the name Nokia, you might think of a phone, or you may even think of something a little more abstract, or even deeper than that. It might remind you of brighter times or even fun memories. I can remember vividly my very first phone was a Nokia 106, popularly known as a Nokia Touchlight. I know this must be the case for most of you, and you would remember vividly the very famous Nokia 3310. As famous as it was, I never actually owned one. Nokia was a brand that could do no wrong until they actually did. How did a successful and pioneering brand, known for its dominance in the mobile industry, end up being a shadow of its former self? It's interesting to know that Nokia was actually the world-leading mobile phone manufacturers for decades, overtaking the likes of Ericsson and Motorola, just to end up being pushed out of the market by the likes of Samsung and the iPhone. I'm sure you know that was actually the case. What were the good things they did, and where exactly did Nokia get it wrong? Let's get right into it. You must be wondering how the name Nokia even came about. Nokia's journey began as far back as 1865 in northern Finland, actually not as a tech company but as a paper mill founded by Frederick Idrestam. A few years later, he decided to open another paper mill on the bank of the Nokia River. This river inspired him to actually name his company Nokia. That's super interesting, as I doubt if he ever thought of how well recognized this name will eventually become. Over the decades, Nokia diversified into various industries, including rubbers, cables, tires, and TVs. I can remember this particular TV is what was actually used back then in our home. So Nokia was a totally different company from what we actually knew and loved. Now let's get into the story of Nokia that we actually knew. Let's start from the 1960s. At this time, there was a great deal going on in the world. Social and political instabilities, making new ways of thinking to actually gain a lot of momentum. But there was still something more interesting, which was the Cold War. In the mid to late 1960s, there was a very high probability that a nuclear war was going to start. I mean, the communist power, which is the USSR, and the capitalist USA were both testing their bombs with high intensity, which made a very neutral country like Finland to be very nervous that they had to start preparing in case the war actually starts. So they started preparing for the worst, and the Finnish government wanted military research into radio telephone communication to help the country realize the full potential of reliable military communication. And Nokia got the contract. And from the expertise they had developed in radio telecommunication, as at early 1970s, they had spanned the entire country. But the real boom for Nokia actually started in the 1980s when they began mass production of car telephones. This improvement meant added features, lower costs, smaller sizes, and even cheaper phones. Nokia's success was their ability to serve various markets while maintaining their effort in all other industries that they were in. As at 1987, they created the Mobira Cityman, the first ever Nokia phone to hit the major news headlines, being used by the leader of the Soviet Union for several press conferences. However, in 1989, Nokia faced a crisis as the Soviet Union collapsed, leading to a major recession in Europe and a drop in demand for all their products. This actually led to a change in management, with the former Citibank banker Joma Olila taking over the company as the CEO in 1992. He made a significant improvement by primarily focusing on the mobile phones, driven by the 80-20 Pareto principle, when Nokia put 80% of their effort into the 20% of their products that were most profitable. This strategic focus allowed Nokia to innovate rapidly, and this was a massive win for them. They listened to their customers, improved their products, and launched models like the Nokia 1011, which was the first mass-produced GSM phone. But then, it was the Nokia 3310, known for its durability and long-lasting battery life, that actually cemented Nokia's place in mobile history. This decision ushered Nokia into their golden period, the 1990s, where they became the undisputed champions of one of the fastest growing industries in history. Stay tuned for the next episode of this series, where we will explore how Nokia successfully maintained their lead and what eventually led to their decline. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and make this fun by writing in the comment section what your first Nokia phone was. See you next time.